Order. Gavin Robinson to move the motion.
Good morning, Sir David. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I move that this House has considered air passenger duty across the United Kingdom. Sir David, this has been a long and protracted issue. There has been many opportunities for Parliament to consider air passenger duty since its introduction over 20 years ago. The fundamental premise of our party's position on air passenger duty, on the thrust of debates that we have seen continually throughout the last number of decades, has been the economic barrier, the economic detriment that air passenger duty, as an arbitrary charge on short-haul and long-haul flights, causes for our economy more generally, for our tourism industry, and for connectivity within and out with this United Kingdom. So I think this is a timely opportunity for this House to consider the impacts of air passenger duty once again. It will not be lost on the Minister, indeed, certainly, sir.
I thank him for giving way. It wouldn't be a debate here if I didn't intervene on the honourable gentleman. The air passenger duty was introduced as a sort of environmental tax to try to discourage people from using planes. Do you think it's worked at all in that function?
Delighted to have an intervention, delighted to have it so early, and delighted to have it from the honourable gentleman. And of course the answer is no. The answer is no. It has not worked as a protection of our environment at all. When we look at the Treasury's call for evidence that was published as a result of the Confidence and Supply Agreement, they state very clearly, air passenger duty is a tax based on the number of chargeable passengers aboard an aircraft taking off from a UK airport, and is the only tax applied on air travel, as the government does not apply VAT or a levy of tax on fuel. Now, if somebody was interested in the environmental impacts of air travel, I suspect fuel might be one way in which, given that it's the fuel that causes the damage, that there may be a tax attributed. But whenever this was considered back in 2006, and the Labour government thought we need to strengthen the opportunity to protect the environment through air passenger duty, their own modelling, Department of Transport's modelling, indicated that even if they were to proceed along the current path, there would not be a stabilisation of emissions until 2040. So does it work as an as an environmental protection? No, it doesn't. Does it work as an economic detriment to our country, to our economy, to our tourism industry? Then in our view, yes, it does. Sir David, I want to pay tribute to all of those who have campaigned on this issue for much longer than I have. From a Northern Ireland perspective, we have been enriched by the enthusiasm and the passion of the campaign from Hospitality Ulster, from the Northern Ireland Hotels Federation, from the Northern Ireland Airports. I have the privilege of representing George Best, Belfast City Airport in my constituency. We've got Belfast International Airport. We have some recreational spaces in Newtownards Aerodrome and St Angelo, and the City of Derry Airport in Londonderry as well. Airlines UK, a campaigning body across the United Kingdom representing airlines, indeed have provided much information. The House of Commons Library and the Tourism Alliance have all been very useful in providing information for this debate. Sir David, as I mentioned, the Confidence and Supply Agreement that was struck between our party and government last year specifically provided for a review of air passenger duty and a review of VAT on tourism and the hospitality sector. And as I mentioned, this is an issue that crosses the entirety of our United Kingdom. There are other people here present today that will want to raise issues that are particular to Scotland, to the northern parts of England, and I do hope that whilst this debate is across the United Kingdom, I will focus much of my remarks on Northern Ireland and the impacts that air passenger duty and VAT have.
securing this debate. And as he said, this affects other parts of the United Kingdom. And the fare tax on flying have actually estimated that since it was introduced, the residents in North Tyneside have paid over 38 million in APD. Does he think that's fair or commensurate with the kind of economic problems we face in the North East when we need to increase our trade and let people go on hard-earned holidays?
I think the Honourable Lady is entirely right, and she's indicating how it acts as an economic barrier, as a detriment, something that curtails growth, something that curtails success, something that stands in the way of business from the north of England to the south of England to other parts of the United Kingdom, stands in the way of leisure pursuits, increases cost on hard-working taxpayers and the money that they have, whether it's through business or pleasure. I think she's entirely right. It is a barrier. Certainly.
He would know the UK has the highest flight taxes anywhere across the world today. Surely we need to look at this issue. We're now going to be in a situation, hopefully, in a post-Brexit, so we need to make sure that we can attract businesses, more people into the country, and this is one way we can do it.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend from Upper Bann, and I don't think the Minister needs to be encouraged on the merits of leaving the European Union, or indeed the benefits and the flexibility and the freedoms that will give us as a country to chart our own course, to set tax rates which are preferential, which are beneficial, but which encourage growth. And from a Treasury perspective, I think that has got to be one of the key factors for them. I mentioned the Confidence in Supply Agreement. We have had this call for evidence. It has been published. I understand there has been quite extensive engagement, particularly from Northern Ireland industry, from the airlines, and for all of those who are affected by this arbitrary tax. It closed on the 5th of June, Sir David, and we are looking forward not only to the thoughtful engagement of Treasury, but to their purposeful response. The issues that they were taking evidence on are the same issues that have applied to this debate for years and years. When Treasury say that they want to explore what the economic impact is of APD, they are exploring the same reports that have been presented to them from 2011, from 2013, from 2015, exactly the same reports carried out using exactly the same modelling that Treasury used, which indicate that scrapping air passenger duty would actually give a net gain to UK Treasury. I don't say that superficially, Sir David, but whenever you stand before a Treasury Minister, or you try to argue with Treasury, and you say, we want to have this cut for a boost, they look at you and say, this is going to cost us money. If we take from this pot, how are we going to supplement it in another way? Well, this call for evidence will show, as every economic forecast has shown, that there is a net economic benefit to the reduction of air passenger duty. Certainly.
Thank the honourable member for giving way and congratulate him on securing the debate. Would he agree with me in the context of what he's just said, that the major competitor to all of Northern Ireland's airports, international, city and Londonderry, is Dublin Airport? And the Dublin Airport in the Irish Republic has now attracted tens of millions, not millions. It is now one of the fastest growing airports in Western Europe, and they don't have APD in the Irish Republic. So we need to have a very competitive industry, and cancelling APD will give our airports a magnificent advantage over Dublin.
My honourable friend from East Londonderry, Sir David, is absolutely right, and I do want to come on to those Northern Ireland specific issues. But just touching on the PricewaterhouseCoopers report of 2013, they use, and this will mean something to the Minister, doesn't mean much to a layman like me, they use a computable general equilibrium model. Probably means a lot to the officials sitting to the side as well. They use exactly the same model that Treasury use when considering the economic impact. They updated their report in 2013, but the 2013 report was very clear. Scrap air passenger duty and the Treasury will gain. Not will lose and claw back, will gain. As a country, we have gone from getting £343 million per year from air passenger duty in 1999 to £3.9 billion last year. £4 billion estimated by 2021. When PwC updated their model in 2015, they said that there would be a direct boost to the GDP of this country by 0.5% in the first year. Not a loss. How many times do we see newspaper headlines with every political decision that is taken that it is having a detrimental impact on our GDP, and yet here is a very simple and a very clear way that Treasury could advance a positive and a progressive move which would lead to an increase in our GDP in the very first year. They said in 2015 if we were to do it then, by 2020 we would have a 1.7% economic growth. What would that mean? 61,000 additional jobs in this country. 61,000 additional jobs, stimulation within our tourism sector, stimulation within our hospitality sector, growth in business, 61,000 further families who are benefiting from a good income, 61,000 further families that are not otherwise relying on the state. More revenue raised in tax than would be lost in abolition. If we can push one message, whether it's through the consultation, whether it's through the call for evidence, whether it's through the plethora of modelling and economic data that has been provided to Treasury, it must be this. There will be more revenue raised in tax with the abolition of APD than its retention. £570 million per year extra if the decision had been taken in 2015. So not the £4 billion we're hoping to get, but by 2020, £2 billion on top of that. That's a 50% increase, Sir David, and if I was a Treasury Minister, I would be jumping at the chance. Northern Ireland was mentioned, and of course, close to our heart. We have to look at the competitive disadvantage that we have in Northern Ireland compared to our near neighbours in the Republic. And consider this. Travelling from Belfast to Dublin Airport is no different from travelling from Manchester to Birmingham. 100 miles. That's all it is. So when you're sitting there and you're considering, where will I fly from? How much is it going to cost? The economic attractiveness of flying from Dublin is incredibly strong. I don't put these figures forward to say the UK tourism industry is in a bad place. It's not. We know that we rank 5th out of 136 nations when it comes to our competitiveness in tourism. When it comes to cost, out of 136 countries, the Treasury report says we're at 135. When it comes to ticketing and competitiveness, we are 135 out of 136. And when you're faced with the attractive economic proposition of travelling 100 miles down the road to Dublin, it is a barrier to growth in Northern Ireland. It is a barrier to additional connectivity, to greater opportunity for leisure travel. It is frustrating and constraining the economic stimulus in Northern Ireland that we so desperately need and that our businesses crave. So in Northern Ireland, we've had 11% increase in travel. Last 5 years, 17% more air passengers going through our airports. 17% sounds good. UK average, 22%. Well, what are Dublin's figures? From 2014 to 2018, the number of air passengers going through Dublin's airports, and in 2014, Sir David, they scrapped air passenger duty. Their figure has risen by 47%. 17 for us in Northern Ireland, 22% is the UK average. Republic of Ireland in 2014 scrap air passenger duty, and there's an increase of 47%. An additional 9 million travellers, 1.2 million of which come from Northern Ireland. And I think that starkly illustrates what we are attempting to highlight. 25% of the cost of a one-way short-haul ticket on average in this country is air passenger duty. 25%. It is not small beer. It is a considerable consideration for anyone seeking to travel. The Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee, which I sat on during the time of this inquiry, has considered both the reduction of air passenger duty, or the abolition of air passenger duty, and a reduction in VAT. Now, we understand that this debate doesn't focus on VAT, it's on air passenger duty, but the two, in our view, are intertwined, and the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee agreed. In the Republic of Ireland, they cut their VAT rate for tourism and hospitality. They brought it down to 9%. That means, again, that industry has a competitive advantage. If somebody's going to visit the island of Ireland, they will see our hospitality figures, our hotel rates and so on, with a significant uplift. They cut their hospitality and tourism VAT, and what happened? Significant benefit to their economy again. For every 1 percentage point they dropped, and they went down to 9%, for every 1 percentage point dropped in VAT, they saw an increase in 1.17% in employment. It directly led to 4,800 new jobs in the Irish Republic because they had the courage to cut the VAT associated with hospitality and tourism. And Northern Ireland Hotels Federation and Hospitality Ulster are very clear that the economic benefit, that the growth in our economy in Northern Ireland could see in 1,100 jobs created through a simple reduction. Now, I understand that we have two tax rates for value-added tax in this country. I understand 20% and 5%. We're constrained with those two at the moment. Even if we weren't constrained to only have two, we may not choose to have 3 or 4 or 5 because of the increase of burden that might have. But the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee was quite clear when it considered the disparity. It considered the way in which Tourism Ireland, which is charged under the Good Friday Agreement to promote tourism on the island of Ireland, the distinct difference that makes when promoting Northern Ireland as opposed to the Republic of Ireland. And so, in responding, I hope the Minister will not only be able to outline for us a timetable when it comes to considering the Treasury's call for evidence, but an earnest desire that whenever thoughtful consideration is given to the mounting evidence that has been compiled for years, when it is considered, that reasonable, beneficial, appropriate steps will be taken to stimulate our aviation sector across the United Kingdom, to stimulate tourism and our economic growth in Northern Ireland. That we look not only at the specific calls from the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee on the abolition of APD and the reduction of tourism VAT, but that we consider other models as well, whether it's the development of a route development fund, where there is a window where no APD could be charged for 3 years. There's a good way to test whether it has an economic barrier or a detriment or not. No loss to the Treasury on any new route because you just don't charge something on a route that doesn't exist currently. No loss. You have a route development fund, encourage growth, stimulate the sector to get business destinations which we would crave from Northern Ireland, whether it's in Frankfurt, Germany, France, even back transatlantic flights to the United States as well. Give a route development fund and give them 3 years to see, does this make sense? Is air passenger duty something which has been such a significant barrier? Allow a route to develop without the threat of air passenger duty, allow it to stabilise and grow, and the fruit, we believe, will be borne through a sensible policy like that. There will be, Sir David, contributions from other parts of our great United Kingdom. 55, certainly.
My honourable friend for giving way and for securing this important debate, and it's timely just to remind everyone of the important work that's underway in relation to the consultation on APD and VAT that he has referred to for Northern Ireland. And he has talked about the general issues, but in terms of Northern Ireland, is in two crucial issues which will result in a change for Northern Ireland, which is that we have this competitive situation with the Dublin airport, and secondly, that Northern Ireland is cut off from the rest of the United Kingdom by the Irish Sea. Therefore, we're much more dependent on air links. And those two reasons mean that when the Treasury looks at the APD issue, it must come to the conclusion that to put Northern Ireland into a competitive position and sustain our economy, then it must take action to deal with those particular circumstances.
He's absolutely right, my right honourable leader from Belfast North. He couldn't have said it better than I could. Yeah, no, absolutely right. It is the competitive distinction, the constraints that are placed upon us as a region, set aside with the Irish Sea, relying on air connectivity. We don't have the choice of searching around for off-peak train travel. We don't have the choice of easily or regularly jumping on a boat only to find that the bus isn't at Stranraer waiting for us. When we're trying to stimulate our economy, stimulate our growth, we have to recognise that we are at a distinct disadvantage because of the Irish border and the tax and duty regime within the Republic of Ireland. And Sir David, I know others are going to mention efforts from devolved regions across this United Kingdom and Scotland have committed, as I know, to remove air passenger duty. Whenever you get into a discussion like that with Treasury, they will ask you, as a devolved region, to cover the cost through your block grant. And they have those conversations with us in Northern Ireland. They've had those conversations with the Scottish Government. They may indeed have those conversations if there's further devolution for the north of England as well. The whole thrust of that approach is predicated on loss. The whole thrust of that approach is predicated on the Treasury not having something which they otherwise would have had. Should it be successful, they don't let Scotland or Northern Ireland or the northeast of England reap the rewards. They go back to Treasury. It's confidence that's needed. It's a bit of optimism that's needed in this process, Sir David. We want Treasury to see through the evidence that has been put forward right across this United Kingdom the benefits, recognise our unique challenges, and there are other unique challenges of remote parts of this United Kingdom as well. I do look forward to what the Minister has to say, but I have a Valentine's poem for him, Sir David.
But late.
This Valentine's poem was written by the predecessor of Hospitality Ulster. It was Pubs of Ulster then. It was written to one George Osborne in February 2015. And I just hope it adds a little bit of brevity into a debate, which can be turgid when you get down to the figures, but I think pragmatists can see what the answer is. Labour is red, Tories are blue. Here's something important that we need you to do. Our VAT rate is crippling our ability to grow. It's putting off tourists to other countries they go. Please cut the VAT rate and help us create a competitive market for our beds and our plates. As you know, my dear Chancellor, you're close to our hearts, but elections are looming and you may depart. So as your last action, as your last action before the big day, please cut the VAT rate and you may get to stay. A little bit of fun, Sir David. It lays out the call from the Northern Ireland tourism and hospitality industry. That's on VAT. Air passenger duty is a clear barrier to growth. And I do trust that the Minister will thoughtfully consider all the calls for evidence, and we look forward to hearing a suitable response today, in the weeks to come, and I hope we will be in a place, come autumn statement, to make some sensible and serious proposals. Thank you.